Welcome back. We are visiting with Ambassador Yoram Ettinger of Israel. He is one of our go to guys on what is happening in the Middle East, always, but particularly at a moment when we're seeing two things that are very ominous at the hands, really, I think it's fair to say, of the Biden administration's zealots seeking to advance, well, causes that were very much eschewed by Donald Trump. To finish the thought on Iran, sir, you mentioned in your historical reference that there was a time when the Shah of Iran was being cultivated as a pro Western hegemonic power that we could safely rely upon to look after our interests as well as those of Israel, among others, there. The current administration seems to be set on the idea that the mullahs of Iran should become the new hegemons of the region. And they're working to advance that idea by throwing money at them, by removing them and their proxies from terrorist lists and lifting sanctions and otherwise. Very quickly, sir, because I want to turn to another topic with you. Is there any basis upon which we could conceivably see people who chant endlessly and have for over 40 years, not only death to Israel, but death to America as the people whom we want to entrust such important responsibilities to in our absence?
Well, I think that the difference between U.S. relations with the Shah of Iran and U.S. relations with the Ayatollahs of Iran is that during the time of the Shah of Iran, with all his faults, lack of democracy, lack of human rights, but at the same time, he genuinely was by far the largest American aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf, throughout the Indian Ocean, probably throughout the Middle East, which spared the US the need to manufacture and deploy to that region a few real aircraft carriers. Today's Ayatollahs of Iran could resemble, if the current process fulfills itself, the current Ayatollahs of Iran, this regime would resemble a gigantic aircraft carrier, but anti American aircraft carrier, which would doom almost every single beachhead that the Americans have currently in the Persian Gulf, constraining dramatically the power of pro American Arab elements at the expense of vital economic and national security interests. But this anti American aircraft carrier is not going to be limited only to the Gulf area, is going to reflect upon the anti American reality in Central Asia, in North Africa, in the Horn of Africa, in West Africa, and all the way to South and Central America, which are in many ways the soft underbelly of the USA.
Amen to all of that. Let me turn to another area that is even closer to Israel as a threat and is also being, it seems, greatly emboldened and empowered by the Biden administration. And that is the various Palestinian factions who seek to not just obtain a state, but to destroy Israel. Talk, if you would, about where things stand with Palestinian incitement, violence against Israelis, and ambitions that would be deeply problematic, obviously, for Israel, but I believe also for our own country.
Well, there's no such thing as any event anywhere in the world which is limited only to the site where the event takes place. The ripple effects have regional and global effect or global impact. When it comes to the Palestinian issue, once again, the current administration approaches the Palestinian issue in a manner which is completely detached from the Middle East at large and from the Palestinian reality in particular, they assume, the folks in Washington assume that Palestinian terrorism is driven by Palestinian desire for a smaller Israel, for a state in the mountains of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. One critical element which has escaped the current architects of American policy in the Middle East is what would the effect be of a Palestinian state upon American interest? And there's no doubt that should there be a Palestinian state west of the Jordan River, it is going to doom the pro-US Hashemite regime east of the river. And once the Hashemite regime east of the river is
That's
toppled,
in the nation of Jordan, of course.
of Jordan, I'm sorry, of Jordan. Once this Hashemite regime is toppled, then the question is, will it be a pro-Iranian regime, a pro-Syrian regime, a Muslim Brotherhood regime? Any such option is bad, is worse, is the worst for the USA, and any such reality would trigger ripple effects from Jordan southward into Saudi Arabia, into the United Arab Emirates, into Bahrain, into Oman, probably also could topple the regime in Egypt itself, where currently it's a pro-American regime. And this would be a bonanza for Iran, for Russia, for China. Why wouldn't a Palestinian state allow Russians to dock in the eastern flank of the Mediterranean? Why wouldn't they allow Russia?
No good. In other words, Mr. Ambassador, I hate to cut you off, but we are out of time. But I think the short answer to this question is no good can come of this new
Absolutely.
effort to elevate the Palestinians, embolden them, and empower them. We appreciate your insights into all of this and hope you'll come back with updates
Thank
to
you very
us
much.
very soon, sir. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ambassador. Thanks to the rest of you for listening to this edition of Securing America. I hope you feel better equipped to help us do just that and that you will henceforth go forth and multiply.